Luna. Date: August 24th, 2142. Commander Franklin Thomas on board Shuttle Archimedes en route to Luna on Colonial Exploration Habitat mission. Day 2 of our journey towards Earth's moon with 6 crew members, all handpicked by NASA to further our mission to colonize the moon. Our first attempt 15 years ago was ruled a catastrophic failure after loss of contact with all of Shuttle Da Vinci's crew and no contact with them since September 21-27. All 8 crew members of Da Vinci are classified as lost and most likely KIS. Our mission is to survey, record, and assess suitable areas for NASA to begin Phase 2 of the Moon relocation, project codename The Lonely Mountain. We are not here to bring home the lost Da Vinci's crew. That task will be addressed once we return to Earth, having successfully completed our mission. With Earth's resources now at a record low, it is imperative that each one of us performs our duty to the best of our abilities. I have no doubt that this mission is in the hands of the best people suited for such a monumental endeavor. Our present course is for Sector D3, Mare Insularum Copernicus, the Sea of Islands. There we will survey the largest crater on the north side for the implementation of a geothermal reactor. This is the first step in the future colonization of the moon. Day 3. Payload Commander Stevens is prepping the first probe to be launched in a low orbit around Luna to relay real-time data to the landing crew while the mission is carried out. Stevens mentioned hopes in finding information about the lost shuttle, but I reminded him that we are here on specific orders, and we are not to deviate from them. After the launch of the probe, we will begin prepping the landing shuttle for immediate launch towards Sector D3. We will be successful here. We have to be. Onboard landing shuttle Edison at T-20 to touchdown on Luna. Myself and crew members, Mission Specialist Tilwell, USAF Spaceflight Engineer Olson, and Lunar Module Pilot Green. We transmitted our current coordinates and mission update to Mission Control. Our next scheduled update will be in 5 hours. T-minus 10 minutes to touchdown on Luna. August 25th, 2142. Successful touchdown on surface of Luna, Sector D3. The landing crew of the shuttle Archimedes disembarked on the surface of Luna to study and assess crater area for implementation of geothermal reactor and the study of surrounding area for colonization. Tilwell, deploy your survey equipment on the crest of the northernmost crater and begin laser mapping, I ordered. Aye, sir, Tilwell replied. Green, stay on board the shuttle and monitor our progress from there.
Yes, sir,
I heard from Green.
Olson, you're with me.
Yes, sir,
he answered. Olson and I proceeded with our gear towards the outer edge of the northern crater to survey the surrounding land for suitable housing and industrial surfaces. The moon was in its new phase, and since we were in the sector facing Earth, we would only have the light from our suits, and this would make visibility difficult beyond a few meters. Mission time plus 1 hour, and a crackle comes over comms.
Sir, this is landing shuttle. Are you receiving?
Green asked.
I hear you loud and clear, shuttle. Our progress report isn't ready quite yet, if that's what you're transmitting.
No, sir. There's something odd I've picked up from piggybacking on the probe's sensor sweeps,
Green stated.
What is it, pilot?
I inquired.
Well, sir, the probe has picked up a signal.
A signal? From where?
I asked.
Sir, the signal is 10 kilometers southeast of our landing position. It's, from the Da Vinci, sir.
What? Say again.
Sir, the signal is a general distress signal set on a loop, and it matches the Da Vinci's designation code.
This can't be, I thought to myself.
Sir, protocol requires that any distress signal received be investigated immediately,
Green stated.
I know the protocol, pilot, and I also know our mission here is of the highest importance,
I said.
However, Overriding protocol in this case requires us to at least verify the signal's location. Olson and I are headed back to the landing shuttle, so have the crawler ready and unloaded,
I ordered.
Right away, sir.
Green replied. This is very, very odd. How could we have not received the emergency signal back on Earth? These questions and more flooded my head as Olson and I continued back towards the landing shuttle. Mission time plus 3 hours. Olson and I are on board the crawler headed southeast to investigate the signal we received, apparently from the lost shuttle Da Vinci. Our primary mission here has been put on hold while we investigate and verify the signal. Olson has voiced his concerns regarding this deviation in our mission, but he knows as well as I that Mission Control would remind us what the priority is regarding an emergency signal. We will proceed directly to the signal's origin and verify its authenticity, and then we'll head back to finish our mission. We lumbered along the dusty and empty moon surface on our way to find who knows what waiting for us. Just a broken ship on its last leg that's been transmitting the same thing for the last 15 years? I have to admit, I'm very curious myself. Not knowing the fate of the crew that landed here before us has plagued many minds back home. It will be nice to finally get some closure for all those families who have lost loved ones. As we closed in on the signal's location, our onboard sensors have picked up what looks like some sort of structure close ahead. This is unexpected, but I do know from reading the mission files that the Da Vinci was to land on the surface and set up a research position. They did bring equipment and the necessary tools to construct a building, so perhaps that's what we're seeing on our display. We arrived at the signal source, and through our front screen we could see an intact shuttle and a small building just behind it.
Olson, let's disembark and check it out,
I said. Olson nodded his agreement. We opened the side hatch with a slow hiss, and we dropped slowly to the ground. I pointed towards the shuttle as our first destination, and we headed there. Upon reaching the shuttle, we observed no visible damage to the exterior, so we opened the outer door. There was no hiss of atmosphere as we entered the Da Vinci, and that told us the life support was offline. There was a single red light towards the cockpit, blinking at the communications station. The emergency beacon had indeed been activated some time after the crew had landed here. The main computer didn't have enough power to do a sys check, so we proceeded to do a visual sweep of the interior. We found nothing out of the ordinary inside. All the equipment that would have been stored on board was missing. We assumed that it was inside the structure we had seen behind the shuttle.
Olson, there's nothing here other than the distress signal. Let's move on to that building.
Olson nodded and followed me outside to the surface once again. As we walked towards the building, I noticed a few blinking lights from the 2 windows facing us, and I pointed towards them, and Olson also said,
I see them.
We continued on and were almost to the door and on the side when I stopped.
Hold on, Olson. I think I saw movement inside. Movement, sir?
He asked.
Yes, let's proceed with caution,
I said with slight nervousness in my voice. The door was covered in dust, but from a line on the dirt at our feet, it looked as if it had been recently opened. The door opened with very little effort, and we both entered into the interior, not knowing what we would find. After passing through the decompressurization room, we entered the main building. The layout was a basic plan of adjoining rooms filled with scientific equipment, tables, and computer screens. There was dust covering everything we saw as we continued down the hallway. A sound from beyond the 2 double doors in the front brought us to a halt. Olson had pulled a pick out of his kit and had his back against the left door in a standard breach formation. Good thing I have a military man on this mission, I thought to myself. Olson made a countdown with his fingers, and when he reached 1, he shoved his shoulder hard into the door, and it forcefully swung open. Our suit's lights swept the interior of the room to reveal a domicile, where there were beds, a small couch, and some chairs. Dust covered everything here as well, and this room seemed to be empty as the rest of the building was found to be. As we started forward, we were brought to a sudden halt when a A shadow projected itself against the wall in front of our lights. It was human-shaped, but difficult to make out in the darkness. "Hello?" I said. Nothing. I looked over at Olson, who had a visibly alarmed look on his face. I slowly extended my right hand towards this figure sitting in front of me. When I touched this person on the shoulder, it jumped.
"Ah!"
It yelled. We both recoiled in shock as the figure sprang up and turned around. We both looked in amazement as a woman was now staring wide-eyed at both of us. Who are you?" I tried to sound calm. The woman looked a little confused as she looked at each of us in turn. She opened her mouth and she spoke.
"I'm Helen Perth, science officer of the Shuttle Da Vinci."
I turned in disbelief at Olson. "But how can you be here? Where are the others?" I pleaded.
They're gone. All dead,"
she stammered. "What happened, Perth?" She just looked at me with something that seemed like confusion mixed with fear, but she said nothing further. After trying to get information from Perth for a few minutes more, we managed to convince her to put on her suit and head back with us to the landing shuttle. She was obviously in shock and most likely suffering from some kind of isolation psychosis. We'll check her out thoroughly once back on board the Archimedes. Our mission update to Mission Control came and went as we docked once again with the landing shuttle, and we were on our way back to the Archimedes. I tried to explain as clearly as I could with what little information we'd gotten from Perth. She had barely said a word on the entire trip back to the landing shuttle, and then back towards the Archimedes. Mission Control made it very clear we were to debrief Perth as soon as she was deemed fit, whenever that would be. She had uttered only 2 words on the way back to the shuttle: home and hungry. I'm sure she wanted those 2 things very badly, especially being stuck on that empty place by herself all these years. I have no idea what nourishment she had that could have kept her alive all this time, but here she was. We docked with the Archimedes, then Olson and I escorted Perth to the medbay. Green was our doctor on the shuttle, so she would give Perth a complete physical and report back to me. About an hour later, Green reported to me that Perth's condition had remained the same. She wasn't speaking and just stared straight ahead. She was, however, in fine physical condition, Green said. I decided to have Green keep Perth under constant observation as the crew and I started to compile the data that we had gathered so far. We were about 1 hour into our data backup, and there was a scream from the medbay. We all dropped what we were doing and ran towards it. I entered first, and what I saw was Dr. Green lying on the floor and Perth standing over her. "What happened, Perth?" I demanded. Perth just slowly turned her head towards me and looked. She cocked her head to the side and a very small smile crossed her lips. I grabbed her by the shoulders and shook her not quite gently. "What the hell is going on?" I yelled. "Nothing," she said. "Nothing." Just stared with her empty eyes into mine. "Olson, get the doctor on the cot and keep an eye on Perth." "Aye, sir," he replied with worry in his eyes. "I'm going to get Mission Control on the horn." After briefing Mission Control on what we had discovered about the Da Vinci and its crew, we were ordered to return to Earth with all due speed, as they put it. They didn't even care about our survey data we had collected. This makes no sense. We came all this way and now we have to go back. We need another week, maybe 2 out here. We just didn't have enough data yet. But I couldn't disobey a direct order, so we terminated our holding orbit and started heading back towards Earth. I ground my teeth in anger as I gave the order. 3 days' journey back. I was determined to get something, anything out of Perth. I headed back down to the medbay to get started. As I was nearing the door to the medbay, I heard something strange. It sounded like a scream that had been muffled, followed by a crashing of equipment, and then a very strange sound. as if someone had thrown a sopping wet towel on the floor. I hastily shoved open the door and was immediately greeted by Olson, standing right in front of me. "Olson, what the devil was all that noise?" I demanded. Olson looked confused, as if I was speaking another language. "Nothing," he said. "Nothing? I know what I heard, engineer," I yelled. I had completely forgotten why I had come down there in the first place. I looked around, but I didn't see Perth at all. "Where's Perth?" I asked angrily towards Olson. He merely shrugged his shoulders without saying anything. "Damn it, I'm going to find her," I said. I inquired with Stevens and Tilwell if they had seen or heard anything, and both of them told me pretty much the same thing. They had been at their stations, and they hadn't seen Perth or anything out of the ordinary. This is ridiculous. A person doesn't just vanish. Our only doctor is unconscious, and the only other person in Med Bay said they didn't see anything. I decided to head back and talk to Olson again. He wasn't acting right, and he was never one to not speak his mind. As I entered medical, I saw Olson using something that looked like a sonogram on green, and he was looking up at a monitor. "What are you doing, Olson?" I asked. Olson seemed startled at my arrival and jumped a little bit when I spoke. Olson moved to the right a little, and he seemed to be deliberately covering the monitor screen. No response from Olson. "I swear, you're going to answer me, or I'm going to bury my foot in your backside," I shouted. I tilted my head to the side to try and see the monitor, and before Olson moved his head to block my view, I swear I saw something squirming on the screen. I was done playing around. I walked right up to Olson, grabbed his uniform by the front aggressively. "Talk," I said. But he didn't. He just stared at me. Then his eyes started looking up at the ceiling. His eyes looked higher and higher until I couldn't even see his pupils at all. "Oh my God," I said. Olson's eyes had completely rolled into his head in a way that I never thought possible for someone. I took a step back. He then started convulsing violently, arms thrashing around. I stepped back even further. An eerie inhalation sound came from his mouth now. His arms both came down towards the floor. His arms didn't look right. They seemed longer. I looked at his legs, and now his uniform pants seemed too small for him. No, his legs were stretching. I put one hand over my mouth as I watched Olson's limbs stretch, and this awful tearing sound could be heard. His head was now elongated in the rear of his skull, and blood was flowing now out of all the tears in his flesh. I tripped as I walked backwards and fell onto some equipment. I was terrified now. A wet, slapping sound came then. The sound a completely wet towel would make as it fell onto a tile bathroom floor. My eyes widened in terror as I looked. Olson's skin had fallen completely off and was in a limp, bloody pile on the floor. What I saw in his place was an abomination. A creature with long, thin legs and arms now occupied the place where Olson had been just a few minutes ago. The thing was dark, but seemed almost to have translucent skin also. Its outer skin seemed to be something like the shell of a beetle. It had a long and pointed head at the top. On either side were many rows of eyes. It made a clicking noise and its mouth opened. It didn't open like a human's, no. It opened vertically. A long snake-like tongue came out, and wetness dripped from it to the floor. In an instant, I understood. I pushed over a rack of instruments as a distraction, and I pulled the fire system's handle down. Gas erupted from the ceiling as I turned and made my escape down the hall. "Stevens! Tilwell!" I cried as I stumbled and tried to keep my footing as I ran. I heard a crash as the medbay door was thrown clear of its hinges. "It's after me," I thought desperately. Stevens and Tilwell came running up to me as I rounded the corner near the landing shuttle bay. Something took over Perth, then Olson. They're both dead," I stammered, trying to catch my breath. "What do you mean, sir?" Stevens asked. "There's no time to explain. We have to get to the landing shuttle and get off the Archimedes," I said with fear running through me. I shoved at them both, and we headed towards the landing shuttle. All of a sudden, the creature appeared out of nowhere and grabbed Tilwell. Tilwell screamed as the creature drove its claws deep into his body and out the other side. "Run!" I yelled to Stevens. We heard Tilwell's lifeless body slump to the floor, and the creature gave out a horrible hissing noise and came after us once again. As Stevens and I reached the landing shuttle, Stevens did not go inside with me. "What are you doing?" I demanded. "Sir, you take the shuttle, and I'll initiate decompression on the Archimedes," he said. "No, we're both leaving together," I yelled. "Sir, we cannot risk that thing over there making it to Earth on the Archimedes," Stevens said, with a hint of sadness in his voice. "Just go!" Stevens shouted. Stevens then pushed me inside and sealed the hatch door shut. I stood motionless for a second, and I tried to process Stevens' sacrifice of staying behind in order to keep Earth safe. I knew he was right, but I didn't feel good about it all the same. I saw Stevens through the window of the shuttle, and he was racing towards the outer door controls. I hurried to bring the landing shuttle online, and I tried not to think about what would happen to Stevens when the creature caught up to him. The landing shuttle's engines hummed to life as I raced through the pre-flight checks. Stevens had reached the controls, but the creature had reached Stevens. The thing out there grabbed Stevens by the neck and bit him right on the face. "No," I said in futile desperation. Fortunately, Stevens had already initiated the decompression sequence, and the outer doors were beginning to open. With a muffled explosion, the doors slowly swung out into dead space. I jammed the thruster controls to full and rocketed out of the Archimedes. Tears stung my face as I saw the Archimedes drifting in space and getting smaller by the second. All of my crew, all of those lives I was in charge of, were gone. The landing shuttle didn't have enough fuel to reach Earth unless I paced her, so I put the shuttle in autopilot and headed to the back to try to get some sleep. As I lay awake, I thought about how I would explain all this to Mission Control. The data was all on the Archimedes, and there was no way I was going back. Not with that thing on it. It had survived on the surface of the moon without oxygen, so there was no reason to believe it couldn't have survived on the Archimedes. At least it couldn't reach Earth now. At last, my eyes got too heavy to remain open, and I finally found sleep. I was awoken sometime later by a sudden jolt. I wasn't sure at first if I was dreaming or not. I sat up from the cot I was laying on and blinked the tiredness from my eyes. It was then when I heard an awful hissing noise coming from behind me.